Today we're going to talk about restaurant insurance in New York and in New York City. When I say restaurants, I'm broadly speaking about a lot of different food service establishments, since most of these rules and strategies are going to apply to a white linen fine dining, to a fast takeout, to a family style, to a cafe, a bagel shop, and a lot of different types of food businesses in and around New York. To start off with, I understand that if you own a restaurant or a food service business, you probably hate insurance. You really don't understand it, the premiums are high, and no one has really explained it to you, so it's frustrating. I get it. And what I want to try to do here is give you the top 7 bullet points you should consider if you're buying restaurant insurance for the first time, or you're about to renew or shop your insurance around for the 15th time or the 100th time. The other big thing I want to get to is that there's a difference between cheap insurance and cost-effective insurance. I have reviewed too many restaurant insurance packages that unnecessarily skimp on certain limits of coverage that put the business owner in jeopardy to save literally just a few bucks. In my mind, that makes no sense. You put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into your business, and underinsuring something like contents in your restaurant to save $150, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. If you ever had that fire claim which damages your place, you'll really be glad that you spent the extra $150 to be fully reimbursed instead of having to dig into your pocket to cover a $30,000 or $50,000 shortfall or worse. This is not to say I'm insensitive to how thin the margins are in your business. I just want to give you all the information I can so you make a more informed decision. Like Cy Sims used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer. Well, I may be dating myself with that quote. Okay, with that out of the way, let's jump into the first policy and what to look for in your restaurant insurance program, and that's a business owner's or BOP policy. A BOP policy, which is short for business owner's policy, is a convenient sort of all-in-one policy that combines most of the property and liability coverages your food service business needs. My suggestions for getting the BOP policy right are the following points. First, property limits. As I mentioned earlier, having sufficient property limits to cover the 100% replacement cost of your building, if you own it, and your contents is really important. Don't skimp here. It doesn't make sense because the dollar savings by underinsuring your property isn't worth it in my opinion. Also, don't forget that the money you spent on improving the interior of your establishment, if you rent it, should be covered. In some restaurants with ornate millwork and crown moldings and fancy bathrooms and murals, and the value of what we call tenants improvements and betterments can add up. So make sure that the cost to redo those upgrades is included in your BOP. Number 2 are liability limits. Here we often see the general liability limit being stuck at $1 million for the past 25 years. But you know what? Most BOP policies, you can upgrade the liability limits for less than $100 in many cases, up to $2 million. Liability insurance protects you from those slip and fall type claims, or if you're sued if someone gets sick at your establishment from contaminated food. I know, it's something you don't want to think about, but it does happen. In my mind, doubling your liability protection for a few bucks makes a lot of sense, but a lot of brokers don't even offer it or make a suggestion to it. Number 3 on my list is business income insurance. We used to call it business interruption coverage, and in most BOP policies, you don't need to pick a limit of protection, which is great. Instead, the policy provides actual loss sustained for up to 12 months, and what that means is that your policy will pay for your ongoing business expenses and lost profit if your business is forced to close due to a covered loss, like a fire. Something that a lot of insurance brokers don't talk about is the waiting period or time deductible on business income claims. Most standard policies have a 72-hour waiting period or deductible, but some will provide a 0 wait time or deductible. Imagine if you had a claim occur on a weekend and was quickly remediated. How would the loss of income from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday affect your cash flow? In my opinion, this is an option worth exploring. If you're not insured on a BOP policy because you're a larger establishment and have a commercial package policy that requires you to state a limit on the policy, there's a lot of policies here that fall short. My suggestion is that you don't guess what limit you need. Take the time to complete a business income worksheet to arrive at a proper limit that will cover you for your lost profits, your continuing expenses, and give you protection to ramp up your business during recovery. If you have a stated limit of business income insurance now and your agent hasn't done a business income worksheet with you, you might be doing business with the wrong agency. Number 4, moving on to the last point I want to make about the BOP policy is spoilage coverage. Spoilage is something that's often incorrect on a restaurant policy form. You have to make sure you have a sufficient limit and that you're protecting yourself from both off-premises power failure losses and mechanical breakdown type claims. Moving on to the next policy, let's talk about liquor legal liability. A lot of insurance companies can include liquor legal on the BOP policy or their package, but some don't, so I want to give this some special attention. If you serve or sell liquor, including beer and wine, you need liquor liability. Without it, any claim that arises from a liquor-related cause is going to be excluded under your general liability policy. Liquor coverage is usually rated on the receipts your food establishment has for the year for liquor. Like other liability coverages, you should have high limits of liability, meaning at least $1 million. Now, I've had some restaurant owners say to me that their bar service is very well managed, their bartenders have attended all the classes to recognize when someone may be nearing that overconsumption and they cut them off, and that they've never had a drunken patron. So having high limits is unnecessary. Well, that restaurateur can be perfectly right in their assessment of their liquor liability risk. Unfortunately, if that well-behaved patron leaves that restaurant and goes to another bar or a couple of bars down the road and becomes intoxicated and then gets in a car and kills someone, the well-managed restaurant is going to get dragged into a lawsuit because the survivor of that person killed are going to investigate where that drunk driver was, and every establishment they visited will be pulled into a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Don't get me wrong, having a well-trained bar staff is really critical, but even the best establishments need high-limit liquor legal protection. The good news is that several insurance companies who include liquor liability in their BOP policy can also include liquor in their umbrella policy. And that brings us to the next coverage part I want to discuss. Umbrella liability. An umbrella policy provides excess or extra liability protection over and above the other liability insurance forms you have, such as general liability, liquor, and auto liability. Usually, a $1 million limit of umbrella coverage is purchased, but higher limits again are available in $1 million increments. My big suggestion here is to make sure you look at the schedule of underlying policies in your policy, because if one of your underlying policies, say your liquor policy, isn't listed in that schedule, then the umbrella policy is not going to pick up extra coverage in the event of a liquor claim. If you own a restaurant or food establishment in Manhattan, it's not uncommon for the landlord to be demanding at least $5 million, sometimes $10 million in umbrella limits. I get it, it can be expensive, but there's really no way around complying with landlord's coverage requirements. Last coverage part I want to talk about that I don't see in a lot of food service policies is cyber insurance. And I don't mean an endorsement to your BOP policy that provides minimal cyber protection. I think restaurants need a full-blown cyber policy to provide the broadest protection possible against the various risks and threats that cyber criminals and hackers are throwing at eateries every day. The biggest cyber risk in hospitality is ransomware. Ransomware can shut down everything in your network, and that includes your POS system, your office computers, your reservation systems, and more. When those systems go down, so does your cash flow. Cyber insurance not only pays for your lost income, but also helps you restore your systems and pays the extortion demands to bring your systems online. The good news is that cyber insurance is cheap. Now, I could go on and on about cyber risk and how the hospitality industry is being particularly hard hit by cyber criminals, but I think you get the point. Last couple of points on restaurant and food establishment insurance I want to make is first, we represent some of the top insurance companies that are hot and heavy wanting to write more restaurants and food service businesses in New York. Travelers, Nationwide, Utica First, Guard, and several other insurance companies are really competitive these days. Some of these insurers will write the general liability coverage with no audits. For restaurants that are growing rapidly or absolutely hate audits, this is a nice feature you may want to check out. Here's the bottom line. You've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into your establishment. Protecting it correctly doesn't need to be complicated, expensive, or difficult. If you're frustrated or unsure that your insurance protection is right, then we should chat. My goal is to make insurance less of a hassle and to be accurate and affordable. Thanks for watching this rather long video. I hope you found it informative. My name is Gordon Coyle, and if you need help on your restaurant or food service business, I hope you give me a call or drop me an email. My contact is coming up, and it's also in the description box below. Thanks a lot.